Hi, welcome back to our lecture series on storytelling with data, a data visualization guide for business professionals. My name's Joe, and in this video, we're going to look at the chapter, Think Like a Designer. What we want to get at here is why thinking like a designer matters. Many visuals fail not because of bad data, but because of poor design thinking. Tools don't create clarity, design decisions do. Today's idea? Good visualization starts with purpose, not with charts. We want to think like a designer. Effective data communication begins with a fundamental design mindset. Form must follow function. Before choosing charts, colors, layouts, or tools, we should first clarify what we want our audience to do with the data. Do we want them to notice a trend, compare groups, detect anomalies, make a decision, or take action? Once the function is clear, the visual form should be deliberately shaped to support that purpose. Visualization is not decoration, it's structured communication. Design choices are not aesthetic afterthoughts, they're cognitive tools that guide understanding, interpretation, and action. Adopting a designer's mindset means recognizing that good design is not mystical talent, but learned practice. We should trust our visual instincts, but also discipline them with principles. If something feels confusing, cluttered, or awkward, that discomfort is a signal that the design is not yet working. Learning to diagnose and fix these issues transforms intuition into skill. Design literacy builds confidence, clarity, and consistency in visual communication. Affordances as a cognitive guidance design. Design should naturally suggest how something is meant to be used. In data visualization, this means creating visual cues that guide interpretation without requiring effort or explanation. Well-designed visuals quietly instruct the audience where to look, what matters, and how to read the information. When affordances are strong, the visualization feels easy, even when the data is complex. Three principles anchor visual affordances in data communication. Highlight what matters, eliminate the distractions, and build visual hierarchy. Let's start with the first one, highlight what matters. Attention is a limited resource. We should direct it intentionally using size, color, contrast, position, and emphasis. Only a small portion of the visual should be highlighted. When everything stands out, nothing does. Highlighting must be selective, strategic, and purposeful. The goal is not decoration, but guidance. Let's look at a specific example using highlighting effectively in the data visualization. So a graph similar to the one on the screen was included in a February 2024 Pew Research Center article titled, New Census Data Shows More Americans Are Tying the Knot, but Mostly It's the College Educated. Based on the article that accompanied it, the figure is meant to demonstrate that the 2011 to 2012 increase observed in total new marriages was driven primarily by an increase in those having a bachelor's degree or more. There doesn't actually appear to be an increase based on the all trend shown, but let's ignore this for the time being. The design of the figure does little to draw clarity to our intention. Rather, my attention is drawn to the 2012 bars within the various groups because they're rendered in the darker color than the rest. Changing the use of color in this visual can completely redirect our focus. In the new figure, the color orange has been used to highlight the data points for those having a bachelor's degree or more. By making everything else gray, the highlighting provides a clear signal of where we should focus our attention. Clutter weakens the meaning. Every element in the visualization should justify its existence. If something does not support the message, clarify the story, or improve the understanding, then it should be removed or de-emphasized. Reduction strengthens the signal. Simplicity increases the interpretability. Removing non-essential elements allows what remains to carry greater visual and cognitive weight. So thinking back to our Pew Research graph, we've used colors sparingly to highlight the important part of our visual. We can further improve this graph by eliminating the distractions. In the new figure, a number of changes were made to eliminate distractions. The biggest shift was obviously from a bar graph to a line graph. As we've discussed, line graphs typically make it easier to see trends over time. This shift also has the effect of visually reducing discrete elements. Because the data was previously 5 bars, has been reduced to a single line with the endpoints highlighted. When we consider the full data being plotted, we've gone from 25 bars to 4 lines. The organization of the data as a line graph allows the use of a single x-axis that can be leveraged across all of the categories. This simplifies the processing of information. Rather than seeing the years in a legend at the left and having to translate across the various groups of all bars. The all category included in the original graph was removed altogether. This was the aggregate of all the other categories, so showing it separately was redundant without adding any value. This won't always be the case, but here it didn't add anything interesting to the story. The decimal points and the data labels were eliminated by rounding to the nearest whole number. The data being plotted is the number of newly married adults per 1,000, and I find it strange to discuss the number of adults using decimal places. Talking about a fraction of a person kind of annoys me. Additionally, the sheer size of the numbers and visible difference between them mean that we don't need the level of precision or granularity that decimal points provide. It's important to take context into account when making decisions like this. The italics in the subtitle were changed to regular font. There's no reason to draw attention to these words. In the original, I found that the spatial separation between the title and the subtitle also caused undue attention to be placed on the subtitle, so I removed the spacing in the makeover. Finally, the highlighting of the bachelor's degree or more category introduced in the previous figure was preserved and extended to include the category name in the addition to the data labels. As we've seen previously, this is a way to tie components together visually for our audience, easing the interpretation. We want to create a clear visual hierarchy. Not all information is equally important. We should structure visuals so that the audience processes information in a natural order. First the message, then the structure, and then the detail. Hierarchy is created through contrast, positioning, labeling, grouping, and emphasis. A strong hierarchy makes complex visuals feel simple by organizing attention and reducing cognitive effort. When these principles are applied together, visualizations begin to afford understanding. The audience does not struggle to decode the graphic, they are guided through it. Let's look at an example where a clear visual hierarchy has been established and discuss the specific design choices that were made to create it. So imagine you're a car manufacturer. 2 important dimensions by which you judge the success of a particular make and model are the customer satisfaction and the frequency of car issues. A scatter plot could be useful to visualize the current year's models compare with the previous averages along these two dimensions. And we've graphed that in the figure. The figure lets us quickly see how this year's various models compared to last year's averages on the basis of both satisfaction and issues. The size and color of font and the data points alert us where to pay attention and in what general order. Let's consider the visual hierarchy of components and how they help us process the information presented. If I articulate the order in which I take in the information, it might look something like this. First, I read the graph title, Issues versus Satisfaction by Model. The bolding of issues and satisfaction signals that those words are important. So I have that context in mind when I process the rest of the visual. Next, I see the y-axis primary label, Things Gone Wrong. I note that these fall along the scale from few at the top to many at the bottom. After that, I note the details across the horizontal x-axis, satisfaction ranging from low to high. I'm then drawn to the dark gray point and corresponding words, prior year average. The lines drawing this point to the axis allows me to quickly see that the prior year's average was around 900 issues per thousand and 72% satisfied or highly satisfied. This provides a useful construct for interpreting this year's models. Finally, I'm drawn to all the red in the bottom right quadrant. The words tell me satisfaction is high, but there are many issues. It's clear because of how the visual is constructed that these are cases where the level of issue is greater than was for last year's average. The red color reinforces that this is a problem. Be careful though. Many people will begin with the red dots as the first thing they see. The red dots suggest something is wrong, so there's nothing wrong with our audience beginning the story there and scanning through to see the other details later. Accessibility means designing for people, not for technical perfection. A visualization should not require specialized training to interpret. If a chart demands advanced statistical literacy, domain expertise, or technical fluency to be understood, the design has failed its audience. Two guiding principles shape accessible design. One, don't overcomplicate. And two, use text intentionally. As far as overcomplicating things, complexity increases perceived effort. When something looks complicated, people are less likely to engage with it. We should favor clarity over cleverness, simplicity over sophistication, and legibility over novelty. This does not mean oversimplifying the data. It means avoiding unnecessary complexity that adds no value to the understanding. And we want to use text intentionally. Text is not the enemy of visualization, it's a partner. Words clarify meaning. They anchor interpretation, and they guide conclusions. Titles, axis labels, annotations, captions, and callouts are not optional. They're structural elements of comprehension. We should use them to explain, frame, interpret, and connect insights to meaning and action. Accessible design shifts cognitive effort away from decoding mechanics and toward understanding meaning. The audience should spend their mental energy thinking about insights, not deciphering charts. Aesthetics are not superficial. Visually pleasing designs are perceived as easier to use, more trustworthy, more credible, and more engaging. People are more patient with attractive visuals, more tolerant of imperfections, and more willing to invest attention in them. Aesthetic quality increases acceptance, usability, and impact. Three design elements anchor visual aesthetics: intentional use of color, alignment and structure, and white space. Let's talk about intentional use of color. Color must serve meaning, not decoration. It should guide attention, signal importance, and support interpretation. Random or excessive color creates noise and confusion. Alignment creates order. Clean vertical and horizontal structures signals organization, care, and coherence. Misalignment signals disorder and lack of intention. When we talk about white space, empty space is not wasted space. It creates separation, focus, and breathing room for information. White space improves clarity and reduces cognitive load. Aesthetic discipline communicates respect for the data and for the audience. It signals that the information is worth attention and care. Even strong designs can fail if they're not accepted by the audience. People are naturally resistant to change, especially when familiar formats are replaced. Gaining acceptance is part of the design process. It's not a separate challenge. We should approach adoption strategically. We should explain why the new design is better. We should demonstrate improvement through comparison. We should invite feedback and collaboration. We should build internal advocates who support that change, and we should test designs with neutral reviewers to identify hidden flaws. Resistance is not always about stubbornness. It may signal a design problem. Feedback is not opposition. It's diagnostic information. Thinking like a designer transforms visualization from technical output into intentional communication. We should design for understanding, not display. We should build visuals that guide attention, reduce friction, support interpretation, and enable action. We should treat aesthetics as functional tools, text as cognitive scaffolding, and structure as meaning-making infrastructure. So a couple of final takeaways. Good data visualization does not ask the audience to work harder. It works harder for the audience. When we integrate affordances, accessibility, aesthetics, and acceptance into a single design philosophy, visualization becomes more than charts and graphs. It becomes a system of meaning-making, a structural, ethical, human-centered approach to transforming data into understanding, insight, and decision-making power. So congratulations, you now have the 5th lesson in storytelling with data, how to think like a designer. And we'll see you in the next video.